Hey, we should host another group build sponsored by the podcast.
Sure, but it needs to be a race car this time.
Yeah, something that can race on asphalt or dirt.
And night and different types of weather. That would be pretty cool.
And can fly.
Wait, what?
What you talking about, BG?
Hey, I got it. Rally cars.
Yes.
What date should we run the build for?
How about January 31st? It can start and go to December 31st. That's a good amount of time.
Sure, I can work with that.
Okay, but I gotta say, I'm a little concerned about the defying gravity thing. I haven't had much luck in that lately.
Join the Scale Model Car Podcast 2025 Rally Cool Rally Car Group Build and build that rally car model kit that's been sitting on your shelf ever since you brought it home from the hobby store and said, I'm gonna build that one day, because now is your chance.
Well, hello, my fellow car modelers. How are you doing today? I got something to show you, and it makes me wonder what the HE double hockey sticks was going on with the model companies back in the early 80s, late 70s, early 80s. Let me show you something. We're going to talk about it. All right, we have an MPC kit here. It's around 1981 this one came out. Yes, Fun Dimensions. And that was MPC. And I happen to have an early 80s AMT Ertl kit here that kind of has the same issue. And it's something to think about in your vintage kits, especially with Ertl and with MPC. I have found this. And by the way, just to give you a quick rundown between MPC and AMT, they were not the same company at the time. MPC was owned by General Mills up until 1985 when they sold to Ertl. And Ertl, AMT, well, that came around 1983 when Ertl bought AMT. But it was 1985 when Ertl purchased MPC. So at this point in time, these kits did not come from the same company at all, or parent company. Ertl was not involved with MPC at the time. They were themselves. So that, with that being said, but they were both doing something. The styrene can be very troublesome in these vintage kits. And let me show you why. I've run into this a few times. I bet you some of you have, and you probably wonder why the heck it's happening. And it doesn't matter what's going on. We'll show you. I was trying to repair it with this. This happened to be, and I basically gave the heck up on it. It was just too much. But if you can see, I'm sanding. Do you see? Oh, it's hard to tell. We got there. But if the light gets it right, hopefully it shows it. You can see that, and it's not because of what was here at the time. What I was sanding off was kind of a ridged molding that was on there. There's actually, you can see it all the way up there. The styrene has this fibrous texture to it. Can really see it here in the sandings, and I was trying to fill in that fibrous. As I sanded this off, let's see if we can see it on this side. As I was saying, you can see it real bad there. As I was sanding off the molding, the plastic, the styrene was starting to separate. Look at this right here. Can you see that? Look, I can lift right up in there. You see that? Look at that. Look at this. It was coming up in like layers. Have you ever ran into this with old vintage kits? Look at this, how it's peeling right up. Isn't that something? And it almost has like a fibrous texture underneath. But as I sand, I would get, chunks like that, just basically lifting right up. Peel it off. Look at that. So, which actually, that's kind of a thought. That's a great effect for doing like rusted up cars. I'll have to hold on to this. Anyways. That was something that you saw a lot in some of these kits. And you can kind of tell, here is a untouched, this is a vintage kit of probably, with it being Ertl, would have to be post 1983 that this kit would have come out. There's no markings on it of a copyright date. But early 80s, and if you look at this thing, and if you could only feel it, it feels very weird. But you can kind of see And you really can see it right here. Let's show you. You can see there's kind of a fibrous runs in there. You see the lines that just jetting across? It's not in the mold. It's in the styrene. This is a notorious kit for this to happen. When you start sanding on it, or if you want to take any molding off, or you want to get aggressive with it, yeah, you're going to start having those little tiny layers of the styrene just peel off, just like what we had on this 57 Chevy. See if we can get a really good look at that. Do you see that? How it just peels up? This is what happened back then. It kind of was from years before, in the early 70s, those of you who know about the oil embargo from OPEC, which was the energy crisis we had in the 70s. Long lines, that was a blast. I was a little kid then, I remember those days, and I used to love going to the gas stations until I had to wait in line for a long time, even in my small town. It was something I used to love to go do with Mom when she said, I'm going to go fill up the car down at Jake's Mobile, and I gotta go. I love gas stations. But those were some interesting times. Anywho, we started to see towards the late 70s was not so much a shortage on products that are produced, which styrene is, produced by petroleum products. There were shortages because the expense was really high. And what these companies started doing was starting to recycle their styrene. Instead of getting brand new fresh styrene, they come in a pellet form. They were just going ahead and scooping up leftover, or basically they were melting the sprues they had extras of, or anything they got from other stuff. They were just recycling old styrene. But the effect was once you've heated it up, injected it, you want to heat it all back up and get it into a blah and inject it again into a liquid. It affects the molecular structure and the properties of the styrene, and it doesn't quite turn out the way it did the first shot, and you get this effect right here. And this was something that just was a bummer. And so that's something when I'm buying vintage kits, it doesn't stop me from buying a vintage kit, but I do look at especially the MPC. I'd never found this in Revell or any monogram, but I found it in MPC and AMT, again, which were separate companies, but they were practicing kind of the same thing. I didn't even find this in any early 80s vintage of Johan, but I have found it in MPC and AMT. And it's something to kind of be aware of if you're into buying vintage styrene and you want to build it. You're not buying it to collect. I'm not one bit suggesting that this needs to kill the collectability or the value of these kits. Not at all. But like with this one, which is a really cool vintage kit, but you can get this kit. And I believe you can get other versions of this 32 Vicky from AMT. And there's other 32 Vickies, of course, better ones that are available today. But this kit here, which is it's still a popular kit. I mean, it's been reissued so many times, even after this. Then it came out, the red version seems to be okay. And then, of course, we got the repop of the Spirit of 57, what this originally was. This was just such a cool box art. So this has been turned into, which I bought it to build. Obviously, you could see I was trying to build it. And I have moved this project now onto a, the Spirit of 57 at the time was available, so I just bought one of those and started working on it. Not that I won't ever mess with this, but yeah, and you can see here, you can see the striping, the lines in the casting underneath. It's just something I try to avoid if I'm going to be doing a lot of sanding off of heavy sanding, like sanding off all of the molding here, the trim. I wanted to just not have any trim at all for this 57 Chevy. Yeah, but it's nothing that a slab of nice spread of a good quality putty, get it across, give it a nice sanding, you should be okay. It's not a horrific thing, but you are going to run into that problem right there with that vintage of styrene. So I just wanted to throw a little information out there for you. Not trying to get down on any of the collectability or value of these kits, or don't start I'm gonna get some vendor's probably mad at me because people are going to come at him. Well, you know, I know this kid because Luka C said, hey, you know, I'm just telling it like it is. It's a fact. It happens rarely. I also have gotten a lot of kits from this vintage, and it doesn't happen. But there were times that they had to basically scoop up the leftovers and throw them into the big pot, and we got that happening. So, with that being said, just a little be prepared when you get these vintage kits when you're going to start sanding on them. It might happen, it might not. But there you go. That's a little history lesson of stuff that happened in the hobby back in the day. Right. Okay. I want to thank you all for watching. I hope you learned something. I hope you enjoyed this. Don't kill the messenger. Let's talk about it in the comments below. And I'm sure if anybody has any more take on this, please put it down in the comments. I'd like to hear what you have to say. If you happen to work for these companies back in those days or knew what was going on, let me know. I really like to know. If I was off, I would like to know if I was off. But, you know, that's the information I gathered. I'm passing it on to you as almost facts, not 100% facts. I never can totally tell you. This is just my years of experience in the hobby and talking to people who've been in it a lot longer than me. So anyways, back to thanking you all for watching. And you remember, we still love these kits. We love building model cars. But why? Well, because they're fun, right? Here's the producers.